there are those amongst us that did not think we'd be here. Even Canes fans wavered in their moments about if the Canes would even force a Game 5, if they would avoid the sweep. In Game 4, they did that. In Game 4, they ended the 15-game losing streak in the Eastern Conference Finals. They won their first Eastern Conference Finals game since Rod Brind'amour scored the game-winning goal a little less than 20 years ago.
Yeah, 19.
They ended some jokes. They ruined some punchlines for some pundits across the country. And all of that is alleviated. The question is, does that help or does that hurt? Because there had to be urgency in Game 4 that played into, right? The annoyingness of just having to answer that question over and over again. The fear of 2 years ago, you made it this far and got swept. And for the last 2 years, you've had to answer those questions, right? Even if you don't count 2009 against this group, because some of them were in elementary school, even if you don't count that against this group, the most recent one you do, right, for a lot of those guys, and they've had to answer it, and they were staring at least another calendar year of the jokes, and they played desperate, and they played very well. And they put their bodies on the line, and they did whatever was necessary, and they won Game 4. Going into Game 5, you're just as desperate from a playoff perspective, right? It's still lose and go home. You're still
situation doesn't change.
They're still facing elimination if you lose, but you don't have all of that other extracurricular, right? How much does getting the weight off their shoulders help or hurt? Does it matter at all? I actually thought it was kind of funny over the last 48 hours. Seems like the Canes were almost as annoyed, if not more, to answer questions about not having to answer questions about the streak, as annoyed as they were to answer questions about the streak when it was active. It seemed like they were testy about it. And quite frankly, now that we're here, Game 5, those questions are done, right? The questions you answer after this game, there's no media availability between now and puck drop. The questions you answer after will be about this game. Now, I didn't think they were tight or pressing, but there was a certain urgency in Game 4, and they need to mimic that and then some, especially when you look at the injury news we got today from both sides. It was pretty clear right from morning skate. There was no Sean Walker. There was no Jalen Chatfield. And that's not great news for the Canes. As much as Nikishin really played well and did some things that are very exciting, and I know the fan base is stoked, Sean Walker and Jalen Chatfield bring a certain amount of trust and responsibility that if they were both healthy, you'd be a lot more confident in. Without them out there, you're depending on 4 rookies again. Blake and Stankoven, you're depending on them by choice anyway. Throw in Scott Morrow, who played 8.5 minutes last game, and about 2 of them came after the second empty netter. So, at least one of them came
minute 45 of it.
After the second empty netter. So you're depending on them for 6 minutes of just hold on out there. Don't do anything that kills us. And then Nikishin. So four rookies out there. Then you flip to the other side. The injury news that we've received about Florida is Reinhart, McCullough, and Greer are all playing today. None of them played in Game 4. Reinhart obviously being one of their top-line forwards. McCullough, a third-pairing defenseman, and Greer probably a fourth-line winger as well. But the thing about the Panthers, one of the strengths of the Panthers that the Canes have had to deal with is there is no rest line, right? Their depth from top to bottom, all skaters, and obviously including Bobrovsky, they come at you in waves. And if you take away, even if it's like, outside of Reinhart, there's a couple of, bottom 6 forward or bottom pairing defensemen, it's like, no, but that's part of it, right? If they had guys in there they were uncomfortable with, then the Canes, you don't want to say caught their breath, but didn't have to be as alert with a lesser player out there. With all 3 of them playing, it ain't gonna be easy for the Canes, right? The news that we got today makes it more difficult for the Canes. But they weren't expecting easy, right?
No.
The Game 4 win for the Canes is the metaphorical, like now you have their attention. right? You knew you were going to get the best version of the Panthers today, and you have to be prepared for that. Let alone, and Dennis and I did some deep dives into the stats, and I'm not going to give you all the numbers because it can bog you down. You'll just take our word for it. The Panthers have played better on the road than at home this postseason, and it's not particularly close.
7-2 on the road,
and
43 goals scored.
And the deeper you go into the, I feel like maybe our subconscious was diving into the numbers, hoping to be like, oh, well, actually, no, they got a little lucky on the road. Did it? No, every number we brought up was more like, ooh, all right, they're going to have to be really good today. Ooh, all right, they're going to have to be even better today.
They've scored 5 or more goals on the road 6 times. 6 out of 9, 5 or more goals.
Power play better on the road. There's like I said, we're not going to go into the numbers, but they're dramatic. So I say all of that to say this. Canes have to play better than they did in Game 4, and they beat the Canes have to play better than they did in Game 4, and they beat the Panthers 3-0 in Game 4.
Yeah.
And they have to play better today. And it is, I like to name my theories. It's Apollo 13, right? The scene I reference in Apollo 13 all the time is when they come back and, they have like a cardboard box, some duct tape, and a pencil sharpener. I forget what they actually had.
A plastic bag.
And you need to make an air purifier where that can like replace the oxygen. They come back and say, like, we can't do it. So I don't think you understand. I'm not asking you. You got to do it. Like, there's Yoda, the do or do not. There is no try. The Canes have to play better today. And if you come back and say, oh, I don't know if we can, no, this wasn't a two-way conversation. This was me talking to you. You have to play better today. And if that means Slavin playing 30 minutes, that means Slavin playing 30 minutes. Rod Brind'amour earlier today was asked how comfortable he is extending Slavin's minutes. This is what Rod had to say.
Very comfortable. I mean, if he could play all of them, we would, and he'd want to too. So, we know the situation. We have to. We don't have a choice. So, it's a good choice to have, and if he can handle minutes, he's going to be out there.
Yeah, he is a good choice to have. The good news about Slavin is, and this is part of the reason why we talk about his contract aging so well, his game aging so well, is at times he's so good technique wise, positioning wise, that he doesn't have to expend all of the energy. Right? He's very rarely sprinting to catch up because he's always there waiting for it. So if we talked about it, if you don't want to play Morrow and Slavin has to eat those minutes, Slavin has to eat those minutes. If Burns has to play, we know Burns is prodigious in his conditioning. Particularly for someone who's 40,
he's older than me.
Like it is like winning conditioning competitions and things. There's no reason to save anything in the tank, right? There's no reason to say Aho, right? Aho's playing every special team. If he has to be out there a little bit more because you trust him more than others, you keep him out there and you trust him more than others. I will give you one number just because it stood out to me. Scott Morrow was a healthy defenseman for the Canes in their last game. He played 6 minutes and 18 seconds of even strength hockey in Game 4. Slavin played 6 minutes and 10 seconds shorthanded.
Yeah.
If that's what it's going to take, that's what it's going to take. I'd much rather, ride the horses the entire race if you have to. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking forward to. You can be tired tomorrow. Right, or actually, we'll use the phrase that they use. Right, you can rest on the bench.
Yeah,
and if you're not on the bench, you don't get the rest.
Yeah.
If you stay out there, you don't get to rest. And we heard stories, kind of anecdotes of guys who maybe are a little less comfortable on a penalty kill, ready to go over the wall and onto the ice, and Slavin waves them off and says, "No, I'm still good. I got this." Mm-hmm. Do that all day, Slavin. Like if that's what it takes, I trust you at 80% fatigue as much as I trust anybody else out there at 100%. It is a by any means, leave it all on the ice moment for the Canes today. You got to be better than you were in Game 4, and I look forward to watching them try.